So, I want to talk a little bit about series LLCs. Because I think that there's some intriguing uses of series LLCs probably for folks in this room. Anybody here familiar with series LLCs? All right, okay, good. So, I want to let's talk a little bit about a sort of a traditional holding company structure. All right, so let's say that Gail and Paul and I form an LLC to go out and buy and rehab houses and rent them out. Okay? And let's say that we're worried that we're going to do this and we're going to put money into each house, and then we're concerned that slip and fall liability, other kinds of liability associated with one house could allow those folks to get at our other properties, right? We don't want one bad apple to spoil the whole bunch. So we say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Gail and Paul and I are going to set up a holding company LLC, and then we're going to drop down single member LLCs associated with each house. Okay, we're going to put each house in its own little separate LLC. Each house LLC will be owned by the holding company LLC, and then Gail and Paul and I alone will be the upstream owners of the holding company. And that's a perfectly valid scenario. Okay, the problems with that is the front end formation cost and the annual ongoing maintenance and administrative cost associated with, in this example, 4 LLCs, or if you got 100 properties, 100 LLCs, get pretty stout. All right. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a bad idea, and I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying it's something to think about. All right. And so one of the things you can think about is, rather than using this structure, it would be to use a series LLC. And I want to talk a little bit about what a series LLC is. Series LLCs, I think, were originated in Delaware. When the current Tennessee LLC Act was enacted in 2006, we largely borrowed the Delaware Series LLC provision and put it in our LLC Act. And what it says is, you can have an LLC with different series of owners, assets, and liabilities. And you can essentially sort of think about each series of the LLC as a separate little cell, okay? And you can associate each series with its own assets and its own liabilities, all right? So you can achieve a holding company-like structure only creating one state law LLC. Now, so here's the way it works. In the Articles of Organization for that series LLCs, that's what you file with the state of Tennessee, you have to include a provision that says, hey, everybody, this is a series LLC. And the liabilities that you may have, the claims that you may have against one series may not be able to be enforced against another series, right? So you're putting the world on notice that you've got this structure and that third parties better ask questions, because they may not be able to enforce their claims against other series. I'm going to get to you in 1 second. Let me flesh this out, because this gets a little esoteric. So let me use a concrete example. Let's say we set up a series LLC, and let's say we own 3 houses, okay? And series 1 is one house, series 2 is another house, series 3 is another house, okay? The liabilities associated with each house it's owned by that series, can be enforced against the assets of that series. That house, plus whatever cash that house generates that's sitting in that series bank account, but it can't be enforced against the other house, okay? So it's like you're getting this holding company-like protection, but you haven't had to go out and form 4 LLCs, you just formed 1 LLC.
One tax return?
All right, it's a great question. So let me tell you the two reasons in the past why series LLCs have made lawyers nervous, okay? And I want to give you one huge caveat on this. If it's life or death to you, that creditors of one sub LLC not be able to get at the assets of the other sub LLC, then you need to use this structure and not use this series LLC approach, okay? And the reason why I'm saying that is because this has not been tested nearly at the level that this has been tested. I can tell you, the statute says you're good to go here, all right? Statute says you're good to go. Whether or not a judge enforcing that statute will ultimately apply the law as written is still to a certain degree an open question. So if it's life or death, you're going to want to do this. Where I would use the series LLC, and where I actually have used the series LLC personally, if I'm just going to set up an LLC, if I'm going to set up an LLC and go out and buy 5 pieces of investment real estate, and they're all going to be part of that LLC to begin with, and I'm not willing to do this. I'm not, you know, a liability protection is great, but at a certain point in time, buy insurance, move on, have a life. Okay. So I'm not going to jump through all these hoops. But what I might do is, if I'm going to buy the 3 houses anyway and put them in this and put them in an LLC, I might say, you know, I'm not willing to do that. But you know, with a little extra work, right? I'm going to get whatever it is I'm going to get over here. Maybe it ain't perfect, but it's better than nothing, right? And I wasn't going to do anything anyway. So why don't I improve my risk profile by doing a little something here? And I'm a lot better off from the liability protection than if I did nothing in terms of isolating one house from the other. You see what I'm saying? So on the liability side, if you're super paranoid about slip and fall folks or mortgage companies on one house being able to get the other houses, if you're super paranoid about it, you're going to want to go with the tried and true traditional method. If you weren't going to worry about that much anyway, you're going to have them all in one big LLC bucket anyway, you might think about that. The other reason why people like me have been a little hesitant in the past was because the tax and accounting treatment of them was uncertain. But we've had some both federal and state pronouncements in the last couple of years that have given us some guidance on this. And what they told us is, from a tax and accounting perspective, each one of these series is treated like a separate partnership, and you get your own separate K1s for each series. Okay. And here's something I didn't tell you, which is, I mean, you can get super fancy with these things. I've given you a simple example where you got 3 owners of the series LLC, and each of the 3 owners is an owner of these separate series. You can have different owners for different series of the same series LLC. You could have one series LLC, and you could have A, B, and C on series 1. You could have A and C on series 2, and you could have D, E, and F, bring them into the deal and have them on series 3. All right? So you can get pretty fancy with it. All right, yes, ma'am.
All right, so what if you had already set up an LLC, or is it to go from that to the series?
Yeah, what you would do is, and I'm going to close on this because this is sort of a good point. I want to talk, this is on this topic, and it's sort of a practical application because I've actually used one of these myself. So, and I did the exact same, and an LLC, which I converted to a series LLC. You amend the articles of organization to add the series LLC notification.
That's it?
Okay, hang on. All right. You're going to have to have an updated operating agreement that is going to work with the series LLC format. All right. I will tell you, I think that in a perfect world, you're going to want to have a separate bank account for each series. However, that's in a perfect world. I think if you keep a really good record, I think you can have like one sweet global account for everything. If you keep really good internal records that shows, for example, that if you got $50,000 sitting in the account at any one time, $16,000 of that is Series 1 cash, $22,000 is Series 2 cash, and another, whatever it is, $18,000 or whatever it is Series 3 cash, and you got good, and you actually track all that and keep up with it. I think you're in a reasonably good shape on that. The key thing is you got to keep good books and records for each separate series that shows the assets and liabilities of that series at any given point in time.